Hey, Sam, how are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining .NET Conf. You are talking about Azure SignalR service on desktop applications, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Take it away.
All right. Thank you. Thank you,
Sure
Javier.
thing.
All right, folks. So, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be joining us from, and welcome to .NET Conf. This has been an exciting day already. A lot more content coming out throughout the day. So, I hope you're settled in with coffee or your favorite beverage, and we are all here to learn from each other. So, welcome one more time. So let's get started. My name is Sam Basu. I am a developer advocate for Progress Software. You might know us for some of the things we make, like Telerik and Kenda UI and Fiddler, anything we can do to make developers just a little bit more productive. That is my social handle. If you need to get hold of me, Twitter, Skype, GitHub, that's me everywhere. So you know how to reach out to me. And I'm here to talk about SignalR powered real-time apps, but for desktop, right? So 30 minutes is going to go by pretty fast. So I'm going to try to show you some basics and try to show you as many demos as I can. Okay. All right. So first up is we need to acknowledge the difficult times that every one of us is living through. So I sincerely hope you and your family are safe and you're healthy and you're trying to be as productive as you can. It's pretty much that's all we can do, right? So starting up, there are two pieces of demographics about me that you should know. One is I'm old. I've been doing this for a while, and you realize that with time, your desktop solutions are critical to your enterprise workflows, right? And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And also, I acknowledge that I'm not as cool as some of the modern web kids, right? But doesn't mean I can't try. So today I'm actually going to be the odd one out. This is .NET Conf focus on Windows, but I'm actually on a Mac today. I mean, I am also running Windows, but I'm going to borrow heavily from web technologies, just to make some solutions light up for desktop and have a little fun. So, desktop, how do you even build for desktop? And this brings me a lot of joy, particularly if you're talking about Windows. But I also understand that this makes things maybe a little overwhelming because we have a lot of choice as developers, right? So we have heard Scott and Dmitry and Olya talk about this stuff in the morning. WinForms and WPF. You can do that on .NET Core 3, 5, and the story gets better with .NET 6. You still can do Universal Windows Platform, but WinUI is clearly probably the way forward in terms of the UI stack on top of Windows. If you want to do web technologies, you still can. I mean, you can write a progressive web app, install it on your desktop, and you can do Electron. You can bundle everything into a shell, and this is what a lot of popular apps do, things like VS Code or Slack or Figma, and it gives you a lot of like OS integrations. But if you don't need all of that stuff, maybe you can do away without bundling in Node.js and Chromium with your apps. So there's some help here if you wanted to do web stuff. If you want to do Xamarin Forms, there are some renderers. But the last two are very exciting as far as I'm concerned, because that comes with .NET 6. This is Blazor mobile bindings and .NET Maui, which is kind of going to ride on top of WinUI to give you more confidence to reach Windows as a desktop. So I think these are very exciting times. Choose what fits best with all of the other stuff that you're doing so you can code share, right? And it's always good to have so much choice when it comes to be able to reach the Windows desktop. But again, Windows isn't the only thing, right? So let's talk a little bit about macOS and Linux. Yes, you can still do progressive web apps and Electron. Xamarin Mac is still a thing. There are macOS renderers on top of Xamarin Forms, and again, Blazor mobile bindings will reach Windows and macOS, and all of this is the .NET Maui. For Mac, you might also be able to reach it through macOS Catalyst, which is a way of running iPad apps on the macOS. And again, for the three of you running Linux as your desktop, I'm just joking. There's some help with some renderers for Xamarin Forms. So this is where we stand, and it's a lot, right? A lot of ways to reach desktop. So what type of desktop apps do we see the most when it comes to enterprise workflows? Let's talk about real-time communications. And why is this important? Because if you look into a lot of enterprise desktop apps, they do require real-time. Let's kind of dive in, and we'll look at some of the ways in which real-time can shine through desktop. So I'm going to take you back a little bit in terms of history. So this is where the web started, right? We have been doing web for like 30 years now. The hypertext transfer protocol, HTTP. Again, things have come a long way. We have HTTP2. We know how to do things in parallel. We know how to compress things a lot better. But the crux of it has not changed. It is still very much a request and response protocol, which makes things a little hard when you're trying to do real-time apps, right? So the good news is we have been doing this. I mean, none of these problems are very new. So we have been doing this for a while, and then we have learned. Now, here are some ways in which real-time helps. And I mean, everybody starts with a chat application, and we will too. But think of any of your enterprise workflows, your stock tickers, your document collaboration needs, games, and location services like flight maps, you name it, like progress indicators. There is a lot more apps we can think of which need real-time communication. And these are all desktop apps. So how do we do this? Well, would be nice if we had like a bidirectional communication, but again, this is hard, right? No matter what stack you pick, in like technology-wise, we are up against some of the challenges that the web itself presents, right? So bandwidth and network limitations. So this is hard. So how do we go around solving this? How do we do things better? Thankfully, like I said, we have been doing this for a while, so we have learned a few things. We have learned a few tricks. First thing is we started doing regular polling, right? This is where your client goes up to the server to say, do you have anything new? And this is kind of akin to if you have kids, they're in the backseat, you start a long drive, they start asking, are we there yet? And are we there yet, right? And now, this is not as bad as it looks like, because if the polling interval is like 1 second, your app is doing a lot, but you're almost real time. You are making a lot of unnecessary trips, but most of the time the server is saying, no, I don't have anything new. You're not wasting a whole lot of bandwidth. So this is kind of step one. But then we learned we can do a little better with things like long polling. This is where if your kid asks you, are we there yet? You just don't respond, right? Until you reach the destination or like there's a meltdown happening in the backseat. Here, the server just does not respond until an event happens or there is like a timeout and then it responds. So this is obviously better, but it needs a little bit of orchestration on both sides. Then we started doing server-sent events, and this is kind of a one-directional push from the server down to the client. You do a quick handshake and you subscribe to an event source, and then you get chunks of data from the server. And this is kind of how the social websites started doing things. And again, it needs a little bit of orchestration on both sides. Then you might remember when HTML5 first came out, and we saw WebSockets, and this was beautiful. It's magical when it works, right? Support used to be a little flaky on some frameworks, but now, I mean, things are much more solid. So this is really good stuff where you do a quick handshake and you make sure you can talk the same language, and then the floodgates open and it's full bidirectional communication. The client can call the server can call the client at any time until one of them fails, right? So this is great. And again, if we can do that, this is probably our best option with WebSockets. Now, there are a few more things that are kind of on the fringes. We used to do sockets, but like plugins wise, that didn't scale very well. IE did a specific thing called Forever Frames, but gRPC is pretty big. If you wanted to do gRPC, it's a protobuf based universal open source RPC framework, and you actually have support for this in ASP.NET. So go ahead and do that. But the bottom line is, the moment you step down to the transport layer, this is difficult. And wouldn't you rather focus on building your apps and your apps functionality rather than the business logic of doing transport layer work, right? So this is where SignalR comes in. And again, this is nothing new. SignalR has been around since like 2012-ish, and things have evolved quite a bit over ASP.NET and ASP.NET Core. So if you look at .NET as we stand today, and again, this is evolving. This is .NET 5 as of November of last year. If we look forward with .NET 6, things will evolve. But literally, as we stand today, the yellow box, the web, ASP.NET, that's where SignalR fits. That's where it was born in ASP.NET. It took like a 2-year hiatus while ASP.NET Core was being redone, and then it's back and it's in full glory. And while the back end of the SignalR stuff needs to be web, the front end can be anything. Like think about IoT, think about mobile, think about desktop, really anything it can serve. So it's very cool what it does. So what is it exactly? So it is an abstraction. It is an abstraction. So developers do not need to worry too much about the network. They can focus on their app's functionality, and the transport layer is kind of where SignalR shines. And it'll choose the best transport given the client and the server pair. It has an extensive API, so you can manage clients, support for a lot of frameworks or platforms, and open source, right? So what's not to like, and it works on ASP.NET, works on ASP.NET Core. Now, a lot of things we see operate on a hub and spoke model, and SignalR is no different. Think of like a Ferris wheel. Think of how like your airlines work. They try to bring you to a hub, and then they take you to the smaller airports, right? So that's exactly the concept SignalR has. It's SignalR Hubs, which is essentially an abstraction that manages clients and the network context. So SignalR knows what the clients are, identify them, and choose that best transport for that given client. You can pass around whatever you want. Strongly typed things are better. And you get a choice of transfer protocol. So it doesn't need to be JSON. JSON is what its default, either JSON based on .NET or NativeSoft, or you can also switch down to something called message pack, which is binary serialization. Deserialization saves a little bit of bandwidth in terms of packet sizes. And essentially this runs on top of any ASP.NET. Lots of choices in terms of how we configure things, how we run things, and things are really good. So the thing that we sometimes don't mention with SignalR is some of the work that it takes to scale, right? If you have just a single web server and you're serving up clients, that's all fine. But the moment you put it behind the server farm, the moment you have multiple servers, then one server doesn't know the clients that are connected to that, because hub is essentially an in-memory thing. So the most common way of solving this is using Redis backplane. So we have the servers write things out to a backplane, which knows about all the clients, and it's much more better managed. But this, again, takes a little bit of orchestration for you to set up and run by yourself, right? So would you not rather, again, let the complexity be handled somewhere else, which is where Microsoft Azure comes in, which at this point, like Microsoft Azure does any and every computing known to man, like it'll do everything in the cloud for you. But the thing that really helps with SignalR solutions is a little service called Azure SignalR Service. And this thing is exactly what it sounds like. It takes away all of the complexity of you hosting SignalR hubs and trying to do stuff on your web servers. This is infinite scale based on however clients you might have. It acts as a proxy, and it's actually really good when it comes to some of the serverless architectures. It has bindings for Azure Functions. So if you have things like in a document DB or a Cosmos DB and some event happens, you want to trigger that event and fire off requests to Azure SignalR Service to notify all of your users, right? So these are the scenarios that it shines really well. And it has a beautiful REST API on top of it, so you can manage users, you can manage your services, and reach out to your clients over pure REST, which is any programming interface, right? So this is pretty sweet, and it can actually help us out. So I'm actually doing not bad, 30 minutes in, and let's do some demos, right? All right. So you're still looking at my desktop. All right. Let's bring up Visual Studio. Okay, so first thing is, if you wanted to start with SignalR, do a search on SignalR Core, and this is where you're going to land. These are the docs. So start with SignalR, and it shows you exactly how to get things done. So which is exactly where we are starting. So I'm on Visual Studio for Mac, and I'm going to show you just starting up just a simple project, which is basic SignalR. So this is a web project running on ASP.NET Core, as you can see. And what we're defining here is just a hub. Let me bump up my fonts here a little bit. So we are defining a hub. This is just a simple chat hub. It has a send message that everybody can call into. And in return, this is the client callback. We expect every client to have that method so we can send it off to every client. This one here is also a project that serves as both the server, the backend, and the client. Front end, right? So for the front end stuff, the server side, you get the NuGets baked in. But for the front end stuff, this is JavaScript is where we are starting. We're bringing in some stuff, SignalR libraries through libman. And then this is our front end code. I have a couple of input fields, and then I have a button, and then I have a list of things to show my messages. And that's it. So let's go ahead and run this. And Chrome fires up, and we have the app ready. So if I do web, and if I say hi, and if I do a send, you see that coming back through. Let me bump up my fonts here a little bit as well. There you go. So again, let me bring up Network tab here on Chrome DevTools. You can see that this is WebSockets. If I refresh this, that right there is WebSockets. And so if I do this again, the web says hi, and you see that actual messages going back and forth. So this is literally SignalR at its basics. And I mean, you know how this works. I can pull up another web browser, put them side by side, and they talk over real time, and everything is good. But let's do things a little differently. So this was the project that we were driving, and realize that this is all JavaScript here that I'm doing. This is one of the clients. So I'm connecting up to that hub. This is my send button. So when I click, I know exactly what to send along, and then I'm starting the connection, and this is my receive message, so I know what the server is sending back to me. Now let's keep this on, and let's take a look at this from a different perspective, right? So maybe you're a .NET developer like me, and you don't like writing a lot of JavaScript. So let's write the same project in Blazor. You heard a little bit of Blazor from Scott this morning. Okay, so we're writing Razor, syntax, and C#. Right, so we'll give Visual Studio a second to load this up. Okay, so now this looks a little more friendly maybe to you. I still have a little bit of HTML, but I'm bringing in the ASP.NET SignalR client here, and I have some placeholders, and I'm looping through. I have a button, and then here's me just connecting to that hub connection. Again, this is localhost is what I'm connecting to that particular hub, and this is my receive message, and I'm just going to append the messages as they come in. Now, let me go ahead and run this thing real quick, okay? What I have not told you yet is this is not a simple Blazor project. I mean, it is Blazor, right? I mean, this is web stuff. It will run just fine on web, but this is Blazor running on top of .NET Maui, which means we can open it up to running on desktop, which is Mac, and I'm going to show you Windows in a second. So same exact app. So if I go back here, so everything starts out here with main Razor. This is being bootstrapped. If you look at the app delegate file here for Mac, we are newing up a window, and we are initializing Xamarin Forms. So we boot things up, bootstrap things up, and then the content view, the stack layout, these labels button, these are all actually native controls. And then we get to Blazor Web View, which is actually a very fancy thing now. It's rendering WK Web View just as Safari would use. It's going to use Web View 2 on Windows, and from that point onwards, everything in that Web UI folder is essentially a Blazor application, right? So let's go back here and let's pull up our Blazor chat application. So we can say Blazor on Mac says, oh my God, I can type, right? There you go. And back on the web, it's right there, right? So desktop and web talking to each other just fine. And this is nice. All right, so while we have this up, let me show you one more thing here. The thing that I did not again mention is if I go back to my earlier project here, which was my chat hub, there's one more thing I'm doing in here. Notice this guy here, I am bringing in Azure SignalR. So again, I don't want to be the one doing all of this hosting stuff. I want to let Azure do it. So I bring that NuGet package in, and then on my startup, instead of just saying add SignalR in my configure services, I'm saying add Azure SignalR. And then you don't need to put in your connection strings and your access token right in your code. There's a little trick that you do to use a secrets manager, and essentially that writes it out. If I go to my CS proj here, you'll notice that it has a user secret, which is my access key and my connection, and I write that out to a file, JSON file, saves on your profile, and when you push this out to Azure, you just give it a dependency so it knows to pick it up from your Azure secrets, right? So just with that, it is actually running stuff on Azure, which I have not pulled this up here. This is my service, and we'll give it a second, and you can see like hits from just me running it right now, right? So with that, I can do more fancy things. So here is a quick little thing. This is called the Azure, am I zoomed in too much? Hang on, 1 second. Yeah, so this is called the Azure SignalR Service Manager. So if I bump up the fonts here, you can see this is just a console app we are using, and we are going to parse through whatever you type in. We are literally going through arguments. If you want to broadcast this, it does other things like user management. If you want to broadcast this, we will essentially collect all of the clients that we are connected to and send it off. So let's try doing that. Here's my terminal. I'm literally sitting on the project, which is the console project here. And I'm just going to do .NET Run, because it is a .NET Core app. We'll give it a second, and it's done saying I can do these things. So if I do a broadcast, and if I say, let's say hola, right? That's it, and done. And now we can go over here. You can see console through REST says, yeah, hola. And sure enough, our Blazor app has already picked up as well. So this is pretty fun, right? Just to kind of show you the flexibility of where all of these things stand. So let me close down a few things. I'm going to show you the Windows side of it really quick, because again, we are here for Windows. So I'm going to go to a hosted solution because if I am doing stuff locally, my preferred way of opening up localhost is this thing called ngrok, which is essentially it does a bunch of things, but it drills a little hole through your firewall, gives you a URL for your unique localhost, which again, knowing all of you, you're going to hit that really hard, and my little localhost is going to go down. So we're going to go with a hosted solution here. But let's go to Windows here. And if Visual Studio will cooperate and come up really quick, it is Thursday for Visual Studio as well. Let's look at the same exact application. Now here I'm on Windows, so I've taken out the iOS and the Mac portion, but exactly the same code, right? We'll give it just a second for Visual Studio to come up. And while it's doing that, we're going to go over here and let's give this a reboot. It is not connected yet. All right. We are live, so it's thinking, but it's not quite connected to the hub yet. All right, let's see if this will connect. So before doing anything else, I'm going to start this up. And this is the exact same thing that Scott was showing you. This is exactly Blazor. So no code changes between Mac and Windows, because literally we are hosting everything inside of a view. This increment button, this counter is essentially shared between native and hybrid code, which is web code. And here's our chat room. Let's see if this will register with the service. SignalR on Windows, right? And we want to say hello. And no, okay. So we have a connection error, which is why it's not liking it. So let me try this one more time. Let me make sure my service is up. So that's exactly what we are hitting. And we are going to try one more time. Now, see, this button being disabled means that I am not quite able to connect. Maybe I ran the limits of how many connections it is. Oh, and I see the chat room, like Brady Gaster and those folks are here. Those are very helpful folks if you're doing SignalR. So I may have ran the limits, because I mean, you can configure like how many connections you can do side by side. Going back to this, let's just pretend that things were working and I did not have a limit. This is exactly the chatroom.razor file that I showed you on a Mac. Nothing changes here. All I did was I changed up the connection to a hosted solution, and then I have the same receive message, and I have the same send async and message async, and this all works because I have taken out the thing which was for iOS or Mac, and I have just used it for Windows, which is what it is. And the Windows solution doesn't do anything else right now other than just bootstrapping it and handing it off to WebView 2, which is where all the magic happens. So this is a little bit of a bummer in terms of not getting you, not being able to show you the right demos, but hopefully you get the point of what it's doing. Maybe I'll give it a quick restart. I have 6 minutes left, okay? How about that? I give it a quick restart. We are live. You know what's going on. So we'll see if our service comes back to us on time. And this might be too early to start. It is thinking, it's still that the notification thing is still going. What I'm trying to say is let Azure do the heavy lifting when it comes to your SignalR hosting. It's really good at reaching out. You saw me do a RESTful API. You saw me do reaching out to clients over ASP.NET Core or any other type of client. It is really good at managing all of your resources and handling the connectivity between different clients. So it is still doing it. I have 5 minutes left. Let me see if this will come back up. We'll give it another restart. No, it's not quite connected. Okay, well, while this is coming up, let me show you a couple of more things here, okay? We are going to assume the Blazor thing was there. We're going to keep it down. and maybe launch another thing here. Now, you don't need to do Blazor, right? If you're on Windows, then you can absolutely do WPF or WinForms, right? And this is pretty standard XAML code, as you will see on any other Windows app. And you don't need to use the web stuff. You can literally just connect up to a hub, and that's it. Beyond that, it's all XAML and it's all C#. So if my service wakes up, this is what I can show you. Here's a simple out-of-the-box WPF application, nothing going on here in terms of the structure. The only dependency is we have a dependency on SignalR client, which is our way to kind of bundle in or wrap up our communications with the SignalR hub. So that is my only one NuGet package here. You see that SignalR client. Beyond that, I can spin up a grid. I can have a couple of text boxes and a button. And in my XAML.cs, and again, all of the desktop developers, this is friendly to us. This is exactly what we do, right? This is a hub connection, and we are setting it up, connecting up to that server, and we are subscribing to the received message. When that message comes in, we want to add that message back up, and then all we do is hub connection.start async, and that's it. That's how everything flows. So it would be real nice if this came back, and it's still deploying. So again, we're live, so we'll see. We'll give it another 3 minutes is what I have left. And the other thing I wanted to show you is if I close this out now, if you're doing cutting edge stuff on Windows, right? So if I go over here, now this is Visual Studio 2019 preview 16.9, and now I can run things like WinUI, the latest versions of WinUI, because so far we have just done chat, right? And that's not very exciting. What really shines when you do SignalR development is enabling those real-time communications across dashboards. If you can think of like an IoT hub that you have connected, or you have folks who are going out in the field and you want to connect their dashboard to whatever sensors that you have, this is where it really shines. So this one here is a WinUI application, just to kind of show you the flexibility that it's all .NET code, and we are all talking the same backend. This one here was a slightly more advanced demo of showing you a dashboard. Here we are receiving a dash update. We have a grid, and we are updating all of those things. This one here is using a view model. And my XAML here, this one has just a hint of like Telerik UI in here to show you some gauges and charts. But that would be a lot of fun to show if I could show you, because if I run this now, and I can, it's not quite going to be able to connect until the Azure service is back up. It tries. Everything is sitting at 0, so it's sad that it cannot connect. Let's see. This thing is back up, so why can we not connect to it? Okay, let me kill.
Hey, so I think when he killed Chrome, he literally killed Chrome. We'll wait until Sam comes back here. Give it a couple minutes or so, or unless this browser just really went down, this is the fun part of a live show, everybody. So we do have a couple questions that were asked. I can bring them up as we wait for Sam to show up. Give me 1 second. And let's see. Ishmael wanted to know that can SignalR replace the need of using a REST backend service? Actually, Sam is back, so let me bring him back up. Hey, Sam, how's it going?
I killed my browser.
When you really killed Chrome, you killed Chrome.
Everything.
It was just like,
I really
done.
did.
That's awesome.
My bad.
So I was going to say,
bad.
we're right on time. So how about we start with questions?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's do that.
But again, folks, just assume that this thing is beautiful. SignalR service went down for a little bit, so I couldn't show you all of the demos, but think about dashboards. Think about desktop solutions where you're enabling real-time communication with a SignalR Power backend. The only thing web-wise you need is SignalR backend, and with Azure, it really is all powered up to serve you, and then it's up to you what your clients may be. Okay, so questions. Can SignalR replace the need for using REST backend service? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to use like real-time, REST is not quite real-time. It's that request and response. SignalR is your way out. Or you can do gRPC as well, but SignalR is really easy if you are a .NET developer like myself, and it's absolutely real-time. Are there limitations on data size? No, not really. I mean, it depends on, again, your scalability. I probably ran out of connections. Some of you were maybe on Twitch saw my URL and you may have been hitting it. So again, it's up to you how the scalability is, and it's up to you how many connections you want to drive. SignalR will scale as much as you would let it scale.
Right, especially in the SignalR service. I mean, you can go, every unit you have is 10,000 concurrent connections, so it can go forever. So, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about SignalR. I have Jessica coming up next, so we're going to do a quick transition here for the next speaker. Again, Sam, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.